everything about their environment is to create low levels of anxiety. And that's what anxiety does in culture. As a leader, it speeds you up. As a parent, it speeds you up. Like when you start looking at decisions that you've made as a leader, I allowed something to speed me up. And I've made bad decisions because I'm pushed by anxiety. When you are living into that place of anxiety, you're not the best version of yourself. And it really does kill authenticity. What are they going to say about me if I...
For our leaders out there, what are some signs that black and white thinking might be affecting the teams that they lead?
Ask your team, do you think that you can bring me solutions to things? What's my response?
What within your leadership have you realized kind of pushes you to that place of anxiety?
It really is for me. Hey, what's up, guys? I want to welcome you back to another episode of the New Rules Podcast. It is your boy here, Adrian, and I am joined by the one, the only. Breezy. What is happening? God, you didn't let me introduce you. Just jumped in.
I wanted to jump in on that one.
I appreciate it. All right, that's good. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. These late night, or not late night, but these later in the day pods, can get us in trouble filming them.
We get a little goofy.
We do get a little bit goofy. And so, well, hey, if you are joining the pod for the first time, we are so excited that you are here, that you decided to spend a little bit of time with us. And here at New Rules Pod, we exist to really help people write new rules. We believe authenticity unlocks human flourishing. And we believe that the world needs more human flourishing. And so that's what we do. We really want to see authentic leaders really launch into the world. And so we talk about all different types of topics to really help people to go, whether if it's in their home life, it's in their work life, and their friendships, and their communities, wherever they find themselves, to be authentic leaders. We believe the world's in desperate need of more authentic leaders, and so we just talk through this. And so, man, I am excited today about today's topic, but before we do that, we are bringing the draft back. We are going to have another draft. As last time, it was a few pods back, I absolutely dominated Bree.
I won.
Bree.
You should go back and listen.
So anybody who's listened to the pod, I need you to do me a favor. DM me and let your boy and let me know that your boy won, all right? Because again, it was dominated again. I think, what did we do? We did
Yeah, you don't even remember.
We did chick flicks, right?
Rom-coms.
Chick flicks. Okay, so we did
Use the diverse and equitable terminology. DEI consultant. Romantic comedies. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, yes, Gen Z. I will use the proper terms. So the proper term.
I'm just kidding. Chick flicks is so much more fun to say.
Is. So we did rom-coms or chick flicks last time, and then your boy was in his bag deep, and I won. And so Bree, again, Gen Z, they're used to getting participation trophies for everything, so she wanted to feel like she won this one, so it's okay.
Boomers? Oh, I guess you're not a boomer. But you basically are. Boomers just don't know how to emotionally process loss, so they just pretend it didn't happen.
First of all, I'm not a boomer. Let's get that
basically.
Yeah, you know that basically it's like a 20-year gap.
Anyone older than me is a boomer.
Oh my God. Well, that being said, we're going to jump into the draft. And today, Bree, tell the people what the draft's about today.
Today, we are doing movie franchises.
Movie franchises. All right. So we can't, just so we're clear, we can't do like Marvel.
You can't say the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe or the whole DC Cinematic Universe.
All right. We'll go. All right. Well, Bree, since always, ladies first.
No, you can go first.
Are you?
I'm so sure.
Don't do that to yourself.
No, you can go first. I'm just here to have fun.
All right, well, I'm here to get a dub. So, all right, so out of the gate, your boy's going to go with Harrison Potter, the Harry Potter series.
That was my first one.
Harry Potter.
That was my first one.
It's coming back out, and on top of Harry Potter, they've got the actual TV show coming out. Yeah, cross it out, because that's what I do. I'm a high-level GM. Grady, the producer, knows this about his boy. I'm a high-level GM. I move, I shake. I'm thinking in your head before you ever can get there. I already know your list. Before you can get there, I know your list. No, you don't. Have no idea.
I actually knew you were going to say that one first.
Harry Potter, because your boy's like that.
I actually have a pretend your list.
Oh, my gosh. Here we go. You know what? We're going to see how good you are, because you don't. I already know. Your list is
Yeah,
here.
but I didn't make my list based off of yours. I'm doing what my favorite draft is.
Well, then your draft's going to be dumb. My draft wins, and yours is dumb. All right, you're up, Bree. What you got?
Oh, my gosh. If anyone's wondering what Adrian is like as a boss, this is how kind and encouraging and compassionate he is.
Whatever.
Come work at the New Rules Collective.
Whatever.
We'd love to have you.
All right, so you get 2 picks now. Because I
really?
first. So, well, let's see how we want to do it. Because last time we did 1, 1, and 1.
Yeah.
We'll do it this way. You'll get 2 picks this time, and then we'll go back to 1, 1, 1.
Okay, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. So
okay, well, my next one is going to be the Hunger Games.
Okay,
and
nice,
I chose
solid.
the Hunger Games because, I'm not even going to say why. The Hunger Games.
Okay,
it's
nice.
up there.
That's a nice
My
solid
next
pick.
one is going to be James Bond.
Oh, my gosh. That's a classic pick. I'll give you that one.
Thank you.
Good
2
pick.
very great ones that were incredibly necessary.
All right, make sure you're writing this down so we can know. So I got Harry Potter, and you got the James Bond, and you got the Hunger Games is the first pick, though? Man, that's like Bree.
Well,
Bree,
it
like
wasn't originally my first pick.
Yeah, but let me ask you this, but Bree, in I don't know what's
does the order
let me ask
matters?
you, in cheerleading, in cheerleading, no, it doesn't, but in cheerleading, what's like a support role in cheerleading? Not like the main, you got it's a role player. What's a role player in cheerleading, Bree?
I'd probably say a spotter, like the person who stands on the side if someone falls.
Okay, so a spotter. I feel like that's what the Hunger Games was. The Hunger Games was a spotter in there.
I don't do drafts often. Or really ever. This is like my second one.
Wow. Well, you should have studied.
Okay. So I'm assuming your top 5 is your top 5. It's not like this is my number 1, this is my number 2. It's my 5 are my 5, but I want to say the ones that I think you might say first.
Okay.
To get them.
I get it. Okay, that's fine. You could do that, but
and then obviously who's sitting on the bench is kind of like they're the supporters.
They're the supporters.
But again, Hunger Games I don't think is a bench.
All right. Next one for your boy. Star Wars, epic Star Wars.
Star Wars is a great one. I don't like those movies at all.
And may God be with you.
But okay,
that's fine. May God be with you on that one. All right. So I got Star Wars as my number 2 elite pick. Your boy is in his bag early.
Do you get to do another one or
no? Now we're going 1-1 now.
Okay. My next one is gonna be Batman.
Whoa! Which Batman? Batman.
It's
Batman Begins, that one, like with James, with Nolan, with Christopher Nolan.
Whichever one has the Dark Knight in it.
Yeah, so the Batman. Yes.
Okay,
that Batman series, because there's a few other ones. Okay, good pick.
Yes, that one.
That's a good pick. There we go.
You.
Nice pick. All right. You know what? Your boy's going to go in his bag. Give me the Toy Story. Give me Toy Story right there.
That's a good one.
Hey, shout out to Buddy and Woods and all the homies. Toy Story right
Incredible. There. Okay, my next one's Fast and Furious.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Yo, that's a bull, Geraldo. I was about to, all right. Fast and just so anybody knows that, she picked that one because she knows that's near and dear to my heart. That's why
there's
she picked
one that
one.
I didn't pick that is near and dear to your heart that I'm going to leave for you.
Really?
And if you don't say it, I'm saying it.
All right. My next pick, before you pick it, Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Lord of the Rings. Your boy is just going with solid, high draft picks. This is like the draft where you got just A1 guys, the LeBron, Dwayne Wade draft. I can't go wrong with my draft right now. So Lord of the Rings for your boy.
Mine's
for my fourth one.
Mine's just a great team.
For your fourth one, Lord, I got a lot of stars on my team. For the fourth one, Lord of the Rings. So who you got, Bree? This is your fifth, right?
Yes, that was 4. My fifth one. I'm going to say.
Think long, think wrong. Think long, think wrong.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, not a bad one. Johnny Depp in his bag in that series. Johnny Depp, Keira Knightley.
It's a great, consistent series. They really support each other well.
It was. Keira Knightley was on the rise back then, too. Yeah.
You ever been to, the best part, you ever been to Disney and you ever rode the ride?
I have, yes.
You know the smell of the water?
Yeah.
There's nothing like the smell of Pirates of the Caribbean water at Disney World. Takes you to a different world.
All right. Here we go. Good pick, Bree. That's not a bad pick. All right. Your boy's been going with some classics. For the next pick, because I'm for the culture. Black Panther. Because your boy's for
I knew you were going to
your boy's for the
I
culture.
for you too.
Let's go. Black Panther. Man. R.I.P. to my man Chadwick Boseman. Black Panther are the pick right there. All right, Bree, that was 5. Now we're going to the bench. We're going to our subs right now.
All right, my bench. A lot of people might feel many different ways about these movies. I love them, and I've loved them since I was like 8, and that is The Hangover.
Oh, my.
Like, absolute, thank you. Iconic. Absolutely iconic. Hilarious. So funny. Great cast. The script is engaging and still so funny. I love them.
Boy. Wow.
They were a road trip movie for my family since I was out the womb.
Hey, yo. Can we get some boundaries up in the family? Wow. Oh, my gosh. All right. Here we go. My first off the bench. I can't lie. I feel like John Wick with a stick. Let's go. The John Wick. Hey, John Wick. I cannot believe I haven't seen the 4th one yet. I've not gone to the movies yet. But John Wick, love every bit Keanu Reeves in his bag. Been rocking with Keanu since back in the day when I was a kid. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Elite actor right there. Elite actor. So that's my 6th pick. All right, here we go. For your last bench pick, Bree, who you got?
I think I want... There's so many good ones.
It is. It really is.
There's 2 that I'm between. I think to support the versatility of mine, I'm going to throw in the Chronicles of Narnia.
Whoa!
Yep, and I'm going to throw in that one because I just love the plot. Love the storyline.
Listen, I love the storyline. C.S. Lewis, goated. But them movies, the film of the movies was trash to me.
Oh, it could have been so much better.
It was so kiddie to me. You know, and I understand they make it as a kid's book, but man, they could have made that a little bit more. You have to be.
It could have been similar to Lord of the Rings.
Yes,
and
100%.
The maturity.
Yes, 100%. All right. Wow. On my last one, I may just go and just. Here we go. My last one, going back in the bag. Give me Shrek series.
Oh,
give me Shrek.
wait, that's a good one.
Give me Shrek. There
that's
we go.
A great one.
Shout out to Shrek and Donkey. Let's go.
You did well with that one. That one was really good.
Well, here's what I'm going to do, Bree. When we drop this pod, I'm going to put this draft up on the IG story. We're going to put it up on your IG story, and then we're going to let the people tell us who won.
Can we do the last one too?
Yeah, we can put the last 2.
Okay.
Yeah, we maybe do that. We maybe do that within the next couple of days. We'll put that one up there. But then we're going to do the other draft.
You got to do that tonight during Meme Monday.
Oh, we could do it during Meme Monday. Shout out to Meme Monday. I got to do Meme Monday tonight. So, all right. Well, hey, we love the draft. Bree, shake your hand. Great job. No, shake my hand. You know. Hey, you know I won. Yeah, I like us.
You did with Shrek because you had Shrek in there.
Shrek was in there.
That was a good final closing.
That Toy Story bag was nice.
Toy Story is good.
Toy Story was nice, too, again. Which one did you pick that got me? Oh, the freaking Fast and Furious, man.
Yeah.
If I would have had the Fast and Furious bag in there, I think that would have been a pretty clean sweep. But
that would have been good.
We'll see what everybody says. All right, that being said, Bree, let's transition today into the pod. Today we're going to talk about an assassin, and this assassin really does kill authenticity. And it's the assassin of anxiety. Now, when we talk of anxiety, we're not talking about anxiety disorder, right? We're not talking about that. But we're talking about those low-level anxieties. We're talking about that thing that pushes, that has the fear of the future, the always what's going to happen next. And again, in our culture right now, we are an anxiety-filled culture, as we've mentioned and talked about before. But it really does really kill authenticity and some parts of authenticity that we're going to dive in to today. So, Bree, let's jump into it. Let's get after talking about this assassin.
Yeah. I feel like to start us off, I want to hear a little bit about how culture can create anxiousness inside us as individuals. When you've talked about this before, you shared a story of playing at Duke, I believe. Mm-hmm. I think it's an incredible analogy. So can you share that with us?
Yeah. So, playing in the ACC, playing at Florida State, growing up as a kid, always wanted to play at Cameron Indoor Arena, which is Duke. It's legendary. Again, so many championships they won. I mean, one of the best arenas in all of college basketball. Well, when we were preparing for Duke, the one thing our coach kept telling us that they're going to try to speed you up. The game's going to get sped up. Now, in that, he was talking a lot about the way they guarded you. They pressured you. They picked you up full court. I mean, they're denying your pass. They're denying passes, all that. Well, so we really worked on being slow, like being really methodical with how we were playing. So you get to Cameron Indoor. Now, again, people get there. I mean, as soon as the doors open, it's packed, right? People are in there. Their fans have lists of information about you, so they're chanting things about you. I mean, crazy stuff like that they'll say. I mean, they get.
What was something they said to you?
what was it? Because my dad was a coach. So they're like, oh, it was like, oh, we got the coach's kid on the team. Oh, you weren't. They were like, oh, the coach's kid's on the team. Oh, you got the courtesy scholarship. Got it. Like something like that. Or here's another one. We got one of my teammates was Nigel Dixon. Now, when Nigel first came to school, Nigel was about 430 pounds. No lie. Now, by the end of his career, 300 pounds. Ended up playing overseas for about 8 or 9 years. Great career. Lost weight. But when he first got there, he's a big dude. So when he first came on the court, dude, they literally. McDonald's, you know how McDonald's has those big bags?
Mm-hmm.
They literally had about probably 20 cheeseburgers in there. Took them out the bag, laid them across the thing. I was like, hey, Nigel, in case you need a snack during a pregame warm-up, I brought you a cheeseburger, whatever, right? Does that.
God.
Another time, that was in the movie when Austin Powers was out, which that could have been in the movie franchise. Austin Powers out. And so with Fat Bastard, so every time you go to the free throw line, they would just yell, "Please don't eat me." I know, dude. And there's the last one.
So funny,
they were
so
killing
sad.
him. There was another one where there's a guy they had on the team named Casey Sanders, right? And so they were next to each other on the free throw line, and they started pointing. They were like, Casey Sanders, Colonel Sanders, Casey Sanders. And so but it's non-stops, right? So anyway. You play at Duke, and here's what they do is that you're getting ready for the game, and I'm in the game. I'm ready to go. I know the game plan, man. We're going to be methodical, whatever. The game kicks off, and I'm telling you, I'm playing the game, and we get to, we always say win the first 4 minutes, right? You got a media timeout every 4 minutes. Normally, again, was in great shape. Normally played about 32 to 34 minutes out of a 40-minute game. We get to our first media timeout, right? That's normally nothing. I am dead. Like, I am so tired. I begin to go, and I had maybe like 1 or 2 turnovers. I was playing so fast. And I was wondering, why am I playing so freaking fast? Well, here's the thing about Duke. The way they play, the crowd's jumping up and down, yelling, it's really tight the way that the arena's set. So you really feel closed in. Everything about their environment is to create low levels of anxiety. So you don't even realize it, but you just start playing so fast, and you don't even know you're playing fast. And when you start to play fast, man, you start to make mistakes. Man, I'm watching myself. I went back to watch film, and I looked like a bat out of hell how fast I was playing. I mean, normally I had creativity about how I played. There was no creativity that was there. And when I think about that story, what it gets me to is this fact of that's what anxiety does. I mean, it was just you felt this pressure. And you just play fast. And that's what anxiety does in culture, that it just speeds you up. As a leader, it speeds you up. As a parent, it speeds you up. As an employee, it speeds you up. And then what that does, that just kills so many things. When you are sped up, when you are living into that place of anxiety, you're not the best version of yourself. And it really does kill authenticity, because when you're sped up, you don't have time to think, to be methodical, to be critical thinking about what you're doing. And that's what a lot of our society is today. I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, all of our conversations today around like politics, for example, politics are just what it is that it's all this anxiety that pushes black and white thinking, right? That pushes people to get in these lanes, and now I got to be on this camp or this camp. And when you talk to people, like, they can't really explain to you why they're in that camp. It's just anxiety. It's the fear. It's the fear of, man, people are going to take my job. It's the fear of, of policing. It's all these fears that are there. And what these fears end up doing is just creating a lot of people who just jump in these black and white camps and really have no authenticity about them.
So as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
how do you go about, one, even knowing when the world might be impacting you that way?
Yeah.
And two, eventually jumping into solutions. What do you do when you notice that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is this. I think that it's like, it's the whole thing, like the body keeps the score. Like, your body tells you stuff. I think one thing is this, is that when you're in certain situations, right, let's just say that, man, here's the thing, in corporate America, the anxiety of, man, like, I've got to get this return, or I've got to get this project done, or I've got to move up the corporate ladder. And if I'm not at this meeting, or if I miss, this function or whatever, it's to listen to your body. Do you feel anxious? Like, a lot of times I know that when I start to feel anxiety push me, there's this, like, kind of this low level, like, kind of like I'm just anxious about stuff, right? Mm. There's this idea where all of a sudden I become really irritable. When I find anxiety pushing me, I find myself just, like, pissed off. Like, just, I don't even know why. I'm just a little bit more angry. So I think to actually listen, to how's your body actually responding to it. When people start talking about politics, how do you respond? When you hear somebody say something on the opposite side of you, how does your body feel? Do you get like red hot inside? Like, how does it make you feel? Because that can start to let you know that there's stuff that's there that's starting to push you. And what you have to do is actually a solution for that. That's one way that you can actually start to do it. The other way is this: is to actually start looking at your decision making. Like, when you start looking at decisions that you've made as a leader, how have those decisions turned out? A lot of times, bad decisions is because we're sped up. A lot of times we think, man, I know for me, when I've made bad decisions because I'm pushed by anxiety, they've been decisions when I go back and look at it, I've done a really bad job. I've gone back because I allowed something to speed me up. I allowed this decision. Or here's the thing, as a parent, I allowed in that moment where, man, I'm dealing with something with my kid that made me feel some type of way. And instead of me embracing and feeling the pain, because as a parent, sometimes you feel the pain of what your kid's going through or what they may be struggling with or something they've done to frustrate you. And then what you want to do is alleviate that pain. So what you will do is then start making decisions really quick. No, we're doing this. So as a parent, you'll make these crazy things like, you're not going to have your phone for 8 years. And you're like, and then, you got to go back and be like, all right, my bad. It's only for a day, right? But because it's like, but those are ways you can look back on it. And so I think that, so that being said, I think you have to look at your decision making and how was it? Was it good? Was it not? And so then practically what you have to do is, one, start trying to be aware of how your body's feeling. Two, I got to say this a lot, do the autopsy. Do the autopsy of your decision making, because when you look at it, sometimes we just make decisions as leaders that we never look at, like, did that work out for us? And if it didn't work out, why didn't it work out? And I guarantee you, probably underneath it, there was sometimes that people were sped up and allowing the anxiety, the fear of whatever to actually do that.
Another analogy for this topic that you've talked about before is Dr. Claw versus Inspector Gadget. I personally have never seen Inspector Gadget, but I love the story. Can you share a little bit about that too?
Yeah. So again, love Inspector Gadget coming out. Gadget, Penny, Brain. You know what I'm saying? But here's the thing. Here's the thing about Inspector Gadget. You actually look like Penny. Penny was awesome. Here we go. Oh, yeah, she was. So here's the thing about Inspector Gadget. It's that like Gadget was like always like was unaware. Right? Inspector Gadget was always unaware. And here's the reason why. It's because Dr. Claw was the villain. Claw was always like, putting stuff around him, trying to trap him, bombs here, whatever. And Gadget was so unaware, he would get sped up on skates. And that's why he had Penny and Brain, because they were the ones that actually did all the work. Gadget just took all the credit for it. But in the end, what happened with Inspector Gadget, he just lost awareness. He was so unaware. See, the thing is that when you allow anxiety to lead you, when you allow that fear, that thing inside you that pushes you, that fear, that doubt, that worry, what it does, it stops from you being you stop being unaware. So think about this. Think about those moments when you ever had that moment where, like, everybody, again, especially me, I can say this, being black. Bree, you grew up around black people. When black people start to run when something happens, right? Something happens, black people, we just start running. Man, listen. The level of awareness, you see people run, but you forget everything else around you, right? Or think about like when you get scared for something or you got to run away from something. Like there's a lack of awareness of what's around you. You look back on like, man, why did I just trip? You ever watch, we watch movies and people fall. You're like, why do people always trip and fall? It's because when anxiety speeds you up, you lose awareness. And I think that's one of the things that happens with leaders many times. They stop being self-aware. And so when you get sped up, you start acting out of stuff that you're not. You start trying, you have what's the word I'm looking for? You kind of, you really like have this over-exaggeration of your skill set. You start to think, oh, I can do that. You know what I mean? You allow insecurity, the anxiety and the insecurity gets in you of like, man, well, what are they going to say about me if I can't get this deal done? And so instead of getting help, you overestimate your skill set and you lose self-awareness. You think you can do a bunch of stuff. And so those are just things that actually happens when anxiety starts to pull and it begins to just destroy really self-awareness around us, which ultimately, as we say, self-awareness plus resiliency equals authenticity. And so we begin to lose a big part of what authenticity is.
Do you believe that people are born self-aware? And if not, is that a skill that can be acquired?
I think there's people who have levels of awareness. Yes, I do. I think they have like levels of awareness, but 100% self-awareness, can actually become a lot. I mean, you can actually grow in that tremendously. I mean, like you're an example of that. And so do you mind kind of sharing a little bit about that for you? You know what I'm saying? Just about how you actually, I mean, when I'm around you and we talk about it now, I mean, you really are very much so more aware. But at one point in time when, you took your EQ test, that awareness
oh
was
my
low.
goodness.
Hey, that thing was low rider, low.
Yeah, I can share a little bit. So back in the day, Adrian used to do something called the Neurals Project, and within it, you had to take an emotional intelligence test, which I would highly recommend everybody do.
Absolutely, yes.
Just Google Talent Smart EQ. It'll come up. You'll get a book with it. You get to take the test, and it will rank you on self-awareness, social awareness, empathy, and conflict resolution. And it'll tell you your lowest, why it could be that low, and things that you can work on to increase it.
Yeah.
So the first time I took it, all of mine were pretty high, and my resilience score, which is self-control, was like 95, insanely high.
Yeah.
So super high self-control, but my self-awareness was, I think, 52. All of them were like up there. Self-awareness was so low, which is a result of a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I grew up with a lot of emotional trauma. I was in sports, so I had to spend a lot of time just being like, not how you feel, just do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons why that was developed. And then after I saw that and I was made aware that I was very unaware, I don't know, really quickly, especially in the Neurals Project, I was taught and I really embodied the idea that you can only experience the fullness of life as much as you're willing to experience pain.
Yeah.
And I knew that I would avoid that pretty much all of the time. I had no idea why I was doing what I was doing. For whatever reason, sometimes it would just work out,
Yeah.
which thank God for that. But because that was something that I really experienced in the Neurals Project, I left there and I was incredibly committed. So I started going to therapy every week, which is a lot of money, because I had a really good one. So I started doing that every week, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, but for the past 2 or 3 years, like, my goal every single day was to make a deep emotional connection. Like, there was not a day where I didn't spend at the minimum maybe 3 hours a day literally just thinking about how I was feeling.
Yeah.
Because I had to go back. I was 19 when I started. 19 years of my life.
Yeah.
Like, and I also, because of some of the emotional trauma, I also had no recollection of my life, like pretty much no memories up until I was maybe 17. So I had to do tremendous amounts of work that took a lot of time, a lot of energy. And I'm at the point in the process where I can see the fruit.
Yep.
For a long time, you don't see the fruit.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to get through the pain, but now I can, and I tell everybody, and the people who are just starting this process who are around me, they never believe me, but they keep doing it. I'm always like, I would do it again. I would seriously do it again, over and over again 1,000 times, if I knew that I would believe what I do about myself now.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate you sharing that. And it is. I've been watching you, from a time on this journey, and I could, as I said it before in other pods, it's just there was such an intentionality to the work that you did. And so it speaks to that you can become self-aware, but you have to work on it. And I think that's the thing about emotional intelligence. That's the thing about these other creepers of anxiety and these assassins of anxiety, is that you have to build things up in your life. And so just like your physical body has to get in shape, it usually is twice as much time for your emotional self to get in shape. And so you have to actually get in the gym, which you did. Like, you thinking about how you felt was the equivalent of like, I'm going there doing legs today. All right, I'm doing back today. All right, I'm doing chest today or whatever. And that was you working on it. And I think that's important for everyone that's here, because let me tell you this, every bad decision that you make in your life is because you feel some type of way. And most of the times we don't even know how we feel. So like, think about when you look back on decisions that you made, we're like, man, why did I do that? It was because you felt some type of way. And if you don't do this type of, and what that is, that feeling some type of way, it may be anger, or it may be, man, sometimes I felt insecure. Why did you feel insecure? Because there was this anxiety underneath me that, man, if I didn't do this, they were going to say this, or this imaginary thing I thought would happen. And so you begin to feel some type of way, and you lead out of feeling some type of way. And let me tell you, all the world's ill started because people felt some type of way.
Right.
And so it's so important as a leader and as a human being that you are constantly thinking about what's going on, how am I feeling, and how is this feeling affecting my decision making?
Mm-hmm.
Because your decision making isn't about, I just know 1, 2, 3 to do. It's really important to understand how you're feeling, because how you are feeling many times can skew the data of the decisions you need to make.
Yeah. One of the things that I was thinking about is how we are trained to, well, most of us are trained to take a lot of time to think about how we're treating our body physically.
Mm-hmm.
We're trained to think a lot about our work. We do that, 8 hours a day?
Yeah.
But we almost never decide to think about how we're feeling. And you have to literally, most people don't have the self-awareness naturally.
Yeah.
So you have to actively make the decision every day to think about how you're feeling.
Yep.
And you're going to feel like you have no idea how to do it at first. That's why we're here. We're here to help you figure out how to do that.
100%.
And then you also have to have a reason why you do it.
There it is.
Like with anything else,
Yep.
why do you exercise? You know that if you don't have a real meaningful reason, most people don't stick to it.
Yep.
When it comes to your career, if you don't have a goal you're trying to get to, you won't do your best at it.
Absolutely.
And so you have to figure out why. And the thing is that most people, or it seems that most people think that being self-aware won't help you make more money. Or being self-aware won't help you, do X, Y, Z, and that's not true, because what we're learning is that if you have that, it will actually, it will impact almost every goal that you have.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember. It's like either 25 or 40,000 like on average. A person with a higher EQ, of how much they make compared to someone with a lower EQ. They polled, I remember one time, CEOs. And how, like, the Fortune 500 companies, it was like over, I think it was like a 70% or something to that effect, a very high number of CEOs had a certain level of an EQ. And that's what they say is the separation factor. So when we talk about this stuff of anxiety and things like that, and again, we have to be, I understand there's really anxiety disorder. So that's why I always preface that at the beginning. But there's the truth about it. Many of you don't even realize that you're anxiety driven. I use the Duke analogy because it was like you couldn't really see. Yeah, our coach was like, it's how they pressure you. Oh, they're going to deny this. And I'm like, but after I look back on that moment, he should have prepared us for the fact of how it makes you feel. Not so much the pressure wasn't doing it. It's what the pressure does inside of you that causes you to speed up. And that's the thing where we don't really dive into that. And like you said best, when people who are really good at this, let me just tell you this as a person who's done this. My EQ is my superpower that's allowed me to make more money than I've ever thought I'd make in my life.
Right.
Let me tell you this. This is so important for you, and not only just in your career, but actually in your family, your marriage. It is so important to you in your friendships, relationships. It's important to you in the community involvement that you actually have. When you actually figure this out and you start to become aware of this, you will start to realize anxiety stuff is everywhere. You'll start to realize why that person in your office, because here's what happens. As Dr. Zoda tells us, as you become an expert of self, that's the most important thing, is being an expert of self. Then what you're able to do is look around, and you're actually able to see other people now when you're an expert of self. So you begin to wonder why Becky at the office always spazzes at the end of the. You can start to see the anxiety of what's pushing her. And what it does, it gives you empathy for people, but it also allows you to respond in better ways toward people. And so this thing is so critical. And I'm telling you, in the world that we're living in, because right now we live in uncertain times, which when there's uncertainty that's there, there's more anxiety that's there. We're living in this time. And so leaders who can actually learn how to kill this assassin of anxiety will be those who actually lead, those who make greater impact in the future.
You've talked before about how anxiety can kill creativity. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to give you another cartoon example of that.
We love it. It ties great with our draft.
It really does. It does. So another cartoon, which probably could have, if it was a movie, but Tom and Jerry. So my son, Jalen, who's now 18, Jalen loved Tom. Love. I mean, that dude would be in the back of the car. It's still, to those days as your kid gets older, it's still one of the cutest things because he'd be in the back of the car watching Tom and Jerry. And when Tom would do something like hit himself or whatever, my man would be back there just dying like he's watching Kevin Hart. I mean, he's like, screw yeah. And so,
I can hear his little laugh. Yeah, but by the way, Tom and Jerry kind of sus now.
Tom, listen, I know, listen. Tom and Jerry definitely. And you know what's funny about that? Tom and Jerry actually, on the video we were watching, and now you got to think this is I mean, Jalen is not. This was like in like probably man. This was when he's 5 years old, 6, 7 years old. So this is 2010, 12. There was a DVD because matter of fact, it was still DVDs. And so we had a DVD of Tom and Jerry, and it actually said in the beginning of Tom and Jerry, it's like, hey, things that were acceptable then that we're showing you are not acceptable. We realize they're wrong. They're not acceptable. So they were like, and this is pre everything. So they actually realized, but they were like, but it still has its place, which that's a whole other probably podcast one day about how I think there's places for things. I think we can't just fully erase history. But that, but again, I don't have time to go into all that. But the thing about Tom and Jerry was this. What was always there? It was one sole mission. Like if you really think about it, right? Tom was always just trying to catch Jerry. The anxiety when he would see Jerry was like, I've got to get this mouse. I got to get this mouse. And there was no creativity at all for Tom trying to catch Jerry. Jerry was the one who was always under control and always had the most creative ways to get Tom back. And that's what I said. When you're sped up, you aren't as creative. When you're sped up, you go to black and white thinking. You become very thin in your thinking. I tell this, in a lot of problems, listen, thick problems, which are problems that are very complex, need thick solutions. Thin problems need thin solutions. So when you talk about, let's say, poverty, right, within the African-American community, that is a thick problem. That's just not most people. Well, it's more, like you get people with stupid thin solutions, need to be more fathers in the home. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's a part of it, but that is a part of something that's a thin solution. And so this is what happens. Anxiety, things like that create they create thin solutions like that versus what are thick, robust solutions for thick problems. And so when you're letting anxiety lead you, where I got to just come up with an answer, I got to be the first one to share this, or you're just like, or you're frustrated, you're angry. It does not allow you to dive deep to come up with real creativity. And listen, in a world right now where everything is changing, I mean, you think about it, there's global trends all around that are changing. There's things in the market that are changing. There are things, I guarantee you, some who are listening, that things they did in their job 3 years ago, they don't do now in their job. Things are changing. So when things are changing, what gets people ahead is when you are a non-anxious presence, you have the ability to look at a problem and don't feel like I've got the anxiety push you. You can come up with real creative solutions. Like a lot of the work that we do, what makes us good at our job in consulting is that with almost every client, we come up with, one of our core parts of what we do is innovation, because when it comes to, say we're working with diversity, equity, inclusion within a Fortune 500 company, there's a lot of employees, it's a thick problem. Well, every time we approach it, it looks different for every company. We have certain goals we're trying to get to, but our solutions are always different. So we can't allow we got to have an answer right now because this is the hot button topic. We're like, no, it didn't take you 30. Listen, you didn't get into this issue in 30 seconds. We're not going to have a solution for you in 30 seconds. Right. It's going to take us some time because what we want to do is bring a robust thing. And so let me tell you this. If you can do this, creativity rises when you actually learn to calm the internal parts of you to actually be able to see the whole board.
What are some signs that a leader might be in black and white thinking?
I think that, like I was saying earlier, I think when it's a complex problem, like abortion, again, I'm using that right now. That's a complex thing. I have my personal views on that, but what I would tell you is that it's also, there's a lot that goes into that. So when people are saying, you know what, it's just this one thing, people people just don't have sex. Okay. Well, I'll give you another example of this. I can't remember what African nation it was, where they had at one point in time, I remember hearing a story where their HIV rate was 50%. So over 50% of the population had HIV. Well, they went to the churches. And so, but here's what the churches did. Instead of the churches just starting to say, we're just doing a campaign strictly only on abstinence, what the church realized was this. They went into, first of all, the idea of going in, of people understanding contraception and how to use it properly. Abstinence was a part of this. And I think they have maybe one other thing. And here's the thing, their HIV, and it was educating because a lot of people, they had a lot of these myths of of how they felt some really weird stuff of how sex can purify you, whatever. Well, here's what happened. that rate, I'll never forget, I can't remember what nation it was, but it dropped from like 50% to less than like 10%.
Wow.
But it was this. The church could have been like, well, it's the church, so it's just nope, abstinence. But they were like, this is a thick problem for people where a lot of people did not hold the church's view. So we're not talking about their doctrine. We're talking about now playing this out in real life. How do they walk people down the pathway? And so that was a thick problem. And so I think when you just provide like thin solutions to stuff, when you're dealing with your kids and your kids are wrestling with stuff, like, well, if they just did this, that would be it. You're like, no, there's way more to that. No, they're just being selfish. Well, are they? Have you thought through it because of how it makes you feel? So I think when you always are just coming with straight black and white answers, that's it. Listen, life, I always tell people, as a pastor, there are the 10 commandments, not 10,000. A lot of life is gray. There are some very clear things, right, wrong, yes, no. But there's a lot of life you have to navigate with wisdom. And so if your whole life is just, everything is just black and white, dude, you are very anxiety driven as a human being.
Mm-hmm. So for our leaders out there, what are some signs that black and white thinking might be affecting the teams that they lead?
Have they ever asked, one way to know, ask your team, do you think you can bring me solutions to things? What's my response when it's my solution? And if they say, they're like, either you ignore them or you just like, you're kind of like, well, whatever, or you just shut them down. You give them every time. That could be black and white thinking. If you're the only one who always has the answers, because here's why. Sometimes as a leader and the team, you realize that, man, you're responsible for the team. You are going to be responsible for your, like, whatever solution you come up with. Your boss is going to look to you. So that can lead to what? Anxiety. That can lead to like, well, shoot, man, I got to come up with the answer, and whatever answer, like, I'm going to be the one, because we could say, well, man, listen, if I'm going to go out, at least I'm going to go out with my solution, not some team I went with this, because I'm going to be the one getting fired, or I'm going to be the one, I'm going to be the one that maybe loses out on this bonus, and that really matters to me. And so I think that's why that's why it matters, because now it's like, oh, what's leading me? Because you may have the best solution. So do you ever get solutions? Are you the smartest person in the room that always has the solutions? If you do, I'm probably going to tell you that anxiety many times is a way that it's leading you. I think another thing that I think with leaders is anxiety leading you is the fact that, like, when you're solving problems, like, maybe you don't have the skill set, but the other thing is that within your team, does your team really solve problems well? Mm-hmm. See, if not, then, what happens is that you can just, maybe your team's not skilled and gifted enough, but sometimes it's like what's leading and pushing you to maybe you're not seeing where you need the proper work or the proper things. Or here's another one with that, because your anxiety can lead you to, like, here's an anxiety thing. I'm afraid to tell people no, or to confront people. That's an anxiety thing. I'm fearful to do this. So what that causes you to do, it's just become like the person with, like, whoever wants to give an answer. Yeah, let's go with that. Even though you deep inside that idea sucks, but you don't want to tell that person because how are they going to respond to me? Like, I see this a lot, to be honest with you. Sometimes with white leaders who lead teams and may have a young African American, because of our current cultural moment, that they feel they really do feel this anxiety that I can't tell this young black who may not have the right idea that he's wrong, because, man, this current culture moment, is he going to see me as some oppressive, blah, 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 blah. And I have to tell them, that's not genuine. If it's the wrong idea, I don't care what color there are. It's a way you can say it. You may need to follow up, whatever, depending on the person. But at the end of the day, that doesn't do anyone any good, because you're not helping that person actually get better. You're allowing his bum ideas to keep getting said, and that same dude is going to keep giving bum ideas, and he's not going to get better because you're like, well, I don't want him. Because here's the thing. You just care about how you feel and how you look. I don't want to be seen this way versus actually, no, I need to be responsible for actually helping this person. And I think most people respect that. So I see this a lot where leaders are so afraid for confrontation that they allow the anxiety of people not liking them or whatever fears that come along with that it ends up pushing them. And especially in our very high culture today where people can really do get offended about a lot of stuff, I get why leaders feel this way, but you can't allow the anxiety of being canceled or fired or whatever to lead you. Yeah. You have to lead in a manner that's the most healthy way for the organization and for the team you're leading.
In your experience, how has being black impacted your self-awareness?
Oh my gosh, a ton. That's a great question. It's impacted a lot because, especially how I grew up. It's interesting because my son is different, or my daughters, they're a little bit different. because they're growing up in a way more, I mean, I grew up a little bit in a diverse world for sure because of what I built myself personally, but like the world's a little bit different. But for me, I always had to be on. When I walked in the room a lot of times, especially when you're the only black person, you become aware of the room. You understand looks when you walk in the room. You understand looks when you walk in the room. I to this point now, when I walk somewhere with you, Bree, you know what I'm saying? We just go to a coffee shop. I'm always observing everyone's look because I've always done that. My whole life has always been, you have to know your surroundings. You have to understand. You have to see people's body language. I was taught, man, when you could tell when someone was feeling a little bit, when they felt a little bit more threatened when you walk in. So I would have to ease them. You know what I mean? They come in and you see somebody like they kind of tense up. So so I would smile, be whatever. I mean, so it was always, you always had to be on and you always had to be aware. And I think that training ground is part of what has helped me actually have self-awareness.
What within your leadership have you realized kind of pushes you to that place of anxiety?
Man, it really is for me. I genuinely just want to be liked. I genuinely, deep inside, want people to just think I'm the greatest. And so what that can cause me to do at times is shy away from really tough conversations. It can cause me not to say directly how I feel. I even think sometimes on this podcast, right? Like I'm a pastor and and I lead. And instead of saying like what I really feel, but I'm trying to get better at that. Because some people see me like, and they know me. I'll talk very clear and brazy sometimes, but not as much as I really feel like I should. Like, because I'm really always wondering, I just want people, what are they going to think? Are they going to think this about whatever? And I think that's really impacts me. And what that ends up leading to, what's funny about that is that it never works out. It never works out when I leave from a place of anxiety and fear. I don't make the right decision. I don't let people go when I need to let them go. I don't actually pull people up. I end up spending time trying to manage somebody's bad, sorry performance instead of actually just like saying, hey, this isn't the place for you. Let's get somebody else in. And times I want to be liked. So again, as a black man working in a cultural space around, sometimes it is DEI, sometimes it's cultural stuff, walking in, I don't want to be the guy. Sometimes they'll look at a company and be like, oh, well, I end up doing stuff like this. I start off like, hey, you got a problem with, I would say random, like people of color and da-da-da, versus realizing, you got a problem hiring black people. Like, and so I end up saying all this other stuff because I don't want them to see me a certain way instead of like, no, just say what it is. And I feel like that's one of my things in my leadership. That's actually my superpower at times. I mean, you've seen that where when I'm very clear and direct, it moves stuff. Yeah. But times I don't because I'm so worried about what you think about me. And again, the broken parts of me of this, like, I want you to like me. Nobody wants to say that in today's world. In the depths of people's soul, like, you want to be worshiped. And that's the broken parts of us. Like, no, people, well, no, I don't want to. Yes, you do. Like, you do. You want people to worship you. You want people to think you're the greatest or whatever it is. And sometimes why that's bad is because I believe this. There should only be one God, and I am not him. And so because of that, whenever I put myself in a position I want to be worshiped, it never goes well.
How has withholding that impacted you long term?
It's completely impacted my body. I'm in the process right now of actually resetting my body. I have, I've been on this journey. I've lost, a decent amount of weight. I have been, I do an executive physical at Mayo Clinic, and there are some things, man, that honestly that came back that my body has been worn out because of it's stress. But some of that stress is that where I hold things I shouldn't hold, where I don't say things I shouldn't hold. To where I'm so worried about how other people are going to be and how they're going to respond, and I don't say it, that I end up taking and I end up eating it. And in the long term, that ends up actually, because your body can only take so much, that you end up holding it. And so physically, it's really, really impacted me. I think at times it's when I'm holding that stuff, I have limits. So now you only have so much. So then when I'm at home, I think at times I haven't been as attentive. Not as aware when it comes to my family, with my children, with my wife. And so that's impacted there. I think it impacts people close to me at times too. So yeah, man, not doing this really has impacted my relationships and impacted my body physically.
And can you share a little bit more, if you're willing, on how that's impacted your relationships?
Yeah. people around me who I know are committed to me feel the impact, I take certain things out on them. So little something, you unfortunately have probably been on the brunt of a few of these where it's something small. It's something super small, but I make a big deal out of it because I'm not really mad at that person. It's kind of like the coach who can't yell at the other person, the other player. So they like whenever the other player, like their better player, the player who can handle it makes a mistake and the coach spazzes. You're like, dude, it was just, I had one turnover in like 15 games and you just went, it's that type of thing. And so I think that impacts those who work next to me because they can end up being like, I got this short trigger. They don't want to mess up. It creates that. I think in some of my friendships, what it does at times is that sometimes in my friendships, it's interesting. Like I'm not as honest with my friends to where I find myself like not telling them what I really think. Because here's the thing with me, I'm incredibly, like I have a lot of emotion. And so what can happen if you got friends who are very much so like this, it can feel like at times when you share that, oh, well, you're just being extra emotional, right? But at the end of the day, I am emotional. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I'm not changing that. Everybody well, stop wearing your emotion on your sleeve. Like, screw you. Like, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. It's the way I'm wired. But here's the thing about it. It's actually a superpower, too. The way that, and again, is there a way you have to put that in boxes? For sure. But I'm never going to be this person like, oh, I can fully be stoic when I feel a certain type of way. That's just not how I'm made. And I think being able to share that and I don't care what you think. If it's truth, and I may say it with a little bit more passion than you say it, that's what gets me sometimes, is that people who say things with passion, sometimes like, oh, well, man, they're a little volatile, versus those who talk like this and okay, hey, you're okay, you know, and it's like, I'm like, no, I'm like, you can be a condescending asshole that way, or you can be that way by doing this way. It's the point of like, it's not about your volume. It's about how you actually are and what you're saying. And I think sometimes people who are that way, they can get a bad rap and feel like, well, and people can dismiss what you're saying because they feel like what you're saying is like, they feel like, well, that's not really thought out because it's so passionate versus instead of them listening to it. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, man, the way you deliver it, and again, I understand is how you deliver messages to certain people, but sometimes, man, the passion's what it is.
Whenever you react that way to the people closest to you, from family to friends, that can kind of be a shameful realization, especially in the moment. How do you approach it, like real time, whenever you make the connection?
I would ask you that question. How do you think I respond to it? I mean, I have my thoughts on it, but you know, sometimes as a leader, you can think you respond a certain way, and then it's like, oh, no, you don't. But actually, you are one of the closest people to me, so how do you feel like that? How do you feel like I respond when I recognize it in real time?
I think that it can be 50-50. I think that you are pretty apologetic and also really big on giving context. In what's appropriate, like, hey, I know that I said this thing, or I know that I was kind of acting this way. Here's a little bit about why. And I think that when the people that you're referring to, the people closest to you, like you said, there's this tension, I think, between obviously recognizing where you need to grow, but also an acceptance. Like, there's just some things that like you said, like, you're going to wear your emotions on the sleeve. And something about relationships is accepting people for who they are, good, bad, and ugly. And so it's not starting. I think the one thing you have is relationships where people aren't going to start making tabs on every single time you do something and expect something specific every time either. But I do think you're very apologetic. I think that sometimes on the flip side, because it's about how you feel, if you feel better, it's good. It's like, oh, well, I kind of worked through that in my head. I feel better now, so I'm just going to kind of move on. But yeah.
No, and that's good. And I appreciate you sharing that. I think that for sure, there's times where I feel like I'm aware and I try to apologize and whatever. And then I worry about at times giving context because I never want context to be the excuse.
Right.
You know, you can be like, oh, here's what's going on. Like, and I always say it. You always hear me say it I feel like I do this multiple times. Like, hey.
Which is why context is important in this situation, too, with this example, because it depends on who you're talking to and what the situation is. Nothing's point blank for sure.
Yeah, and I think that I'm always saying, like, hey, I was wrong for this, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll say, hey, but can I get, you know, sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm going to give you so you understand. And then afterwards, I always say, hey, but again, I was wrong, because I think I never want, because I've had that where people give context and they really end up never apologizing. You know what I'm saying? Or they're like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, but hey, blah, blah, blah. And then they don't go back to it. And you're just like, okay, well, and even in their context, they're kind of blaming. You end up getting, I've had that where people, I'll get blamed for their context. I'm like, no, you know? And so I really do try to do that, try to be really aware once I recognize that, to be quick to apologize. I have to deal with my kids sometimes where there's moments where I'm like, oh, no, I have really gone there with them. And it was wrong. And sometimes that's a humbling thing to have to, the people who you pay all their bills, you have to tell them you're sorry. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that's a humbling experience to be able to tell, the freaking dude, so it's kind of what it is.
One of the examples that you have talked about, or analogies when it comes to doing this well, is our favorite show, Phineas and Ferb.
It's 104 days of summer vacation.
And school comes along just to end it.
So the annual problem for our generation is finding a good way to spend it. Like baby. So yes, shout out me and Bree. We definitely watched Phineas and Ferb the other day. We watched the Kansas movie. Shout out Phineas and Ferb. But no, here's what it is. Make the title sequence. But no, here's the thing with Phineas and Ferb. Again, I like to make those connection points because here's what was cool about Phineas and Ferb. They would always face a situation, and it was faced with just curiosity.
Mm-hmm. And compassion.
And compassion. That's it. They're like, hey, like there's one where they're like, man, like, that time they tried to, they wanted to really help Candace, and they went to Mount Rushmore, and they built Candace on they tried to build Candace's face on Mount Rushmore. It really was a place where they wanted Candace to feel special, and so they let curiosity and compassion drive what they invented. And I think that's so important for people, man, to let curiosity, but let compassion drive you. I think some of the greatest inventions, some of the greatest things that are ahead of us are going to be from people who actually find compassion. Here's why. Because we're lacking it in our world. Mm-hmm. We're lacking in our world on both sides of the aisle because political ideologies are what drives most people now. And when you drive by political ideology, it drives black and white. And so you can't see, which it takes down compassion and empathy. But if you can actually learn to manage the anxiety, to kill that assassin, what you're able to look at is you're now able to look at situations and come up with solutions that are actually compassionate, but they can be creative as well. Right. And I think that's what the world needs right now. The world needs leaders who have compassion. And please hear me in this, because this is my rant. Like, I cannot stomach people who say, well, I'm just speaking truth. Like, listen to me. If you're speaking truth, here's my point. Has your truth ever changed anyone? Mm-hmm. Has anyone ever come to your side because of your truth? If they haven't, your truth is worthless to me. Mm-hmm. If it's not changing anybody. And here's what I mean by that. I'm not saying every person is going to do that, but if you don't have anyone, and a lot of these freaking idiots have no one that's really moved, because when you're saying it, there's no love behind it. There's no empathy. There's no compassion of why you're speaking truth. If you think this is really harming someone, if you really have this view that someone, and I'll say this because this is our authentic podcast. I do have an issue when you're looking at transgender stuff, when you're talking about children. Like children, but I have a problem with that. Again, now, here's the thing, though. Because my heart really is for kids to say, hey, again, we live in a free country. I may have my religious beliefs, but when you're 18 and you're 19, 20, you can now, your mind, your brain's more formed to make a decision that could change your life forever. And I think that sometimes I'm watching parents, not all, so please hear me, but some parents who are now finding their identity in their kids' sexuality. It's freaking weird. It's wrong. Mm-hmm. And so now these kids are making decisions that could change their life forever. My heart around why I talk about it sometimes is because of my compassion for those children. Mm-hmm. What that could do, the intellect, till you get to a point to where, man, now if you decide to make that choice at 18, we live in a country where you have that freedom. Mm-hmm. And again, though I may not personally agree with certain things because of my religious beliefs, I still, though, can have a absolute, I understand. And it doesn't change my heart, my empathy, my compassion, my love for somebody. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing, though, but I say it out of that. I say it out of a love. Mm-hmm. I don't say it because, oh my God, you just disgust me. That's what we feel like a lot of times when people say things, or when I see like left-leaning people talk about anybody who votes for Donald Trump. Oh, they're just redneck people who hate that. And I'm like, dude, no. And that's where our world right now, we're just full of a bunch of people who think they're speaking truth. There's no love and compassion, because here's what I know about love. Love actually changes people. Love wins people. Love pulls people in. And a lot of this stuff isn't doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for standing for what's right and what's truthful, but it has to be done from a place of actual real love,
Mm-hmm.
because that's when things change. That's when real impact changes.
Mm-hmm. And also, don't consistently just hate and attack on people and call out
Preach.
problems you're not willing to solve.
Dude, preach.
Like, do not Twitter fingers, mostly Facebook.
Dude, because all the
Talking about
boomers on Facebook, man.
So much stuff, and it's like, well, what do you do with your time?
That's it.
Like,
Because here's my point. Because here's what I care about. Again, there's this thing, it's this idea of like, in the Bible, there's this passage, like, it talks about, man, like the fruit. You can judge a tree by its fruit.
mm-hmm.
But I tell people, don't judge a tree. Don't judge that tree unless you're willing to take care of that tree.
Right.
Don't judge that tree unless you're willing to take care of it. Unless you're willing to get in the trenches in the mud and do it. Don't talk about it. And when you talk about it again, because let me just tell you this, like sometimes there's need for response or whatever, because maybe you have a platform or a voice to say
mm-hmm.
something.
Right.
But
or just general critical thinking. Everyone
yes.
can have an opinion.
Absolutely.
Critically think about the world, culture, politics, all of that. That is so different than like consistently hammering on something that you aren't even committed to helping
Listen,
fix.
this is our podcast platform. This does not represent Engaged Church or me being the pastor. So I feel like I was going to say, but here's my point. It's what I call the asshole effect. Don't be an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't. And I'm saying that because listen, sometimes I cuss to get your attention. And I'm saying that to get your attention. Don't be an asshole. That is the issue today. People, your anxiety is causing you just to get, well, I got to say my truth. I'm just getting this on both sides. This is just my truth. And here's my point. As my mentor, good friend Leonard Hamilton says, not everybody needs to know how you feel. Don't nobody care.
Right.
A lot of people, you actually think people care about what you think. They do not. They don't care about Freedom Fighter 95 on Twitter, and you're a coward. You don't even put your own picture in your own profile pic. You got like a Freedom Eagle, or you got some of your your favorite your favorite player or football team. Again, I got in that beef the other day on Twitter, and everybody who had an issue with me, I didn't see one person with their profile pic. Nobody I couldn't see. They guys, whatever. Here's my point. Don't be that way. Like, if you want to speak truth, that's fine. But again, I'm going to ask you, does anybody ever engage you in any more conversation? If your side is right, does anybody ever move? Does anybody ever move if you've done that? By standing on truth. Because I believe you should stand for what you believe is right and true, but you can do that without being a jerk about it. So
everyone just needs to be a little bit more curious and a little bit more compassionate.
There it is.
What would Phineas and Ferb do?
There it is. That's what
it's the question.
Hey, Ferb, how can we fix this today? No. But guys, hey, we hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you hear what we're saying again and again. What we want to do, we want to encourage you, go get that Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book, dive in. That's a very practical thing to start doing that. And let me tell you, that book's amazing because they actually have exercises in there to help it create your social awareness, your self-awareness, and so on and so forth. Also, listen, one thing that we always say, start writing down how you feel. Just start putting in a journal. Have a note on your phone, and just when you ever feel like a certain, man, I was angry today. And then try to ask you, why was I angry today? Those things actually can find out. Or when you start to feel anxiety, fear, worry, whatever, try to track why. The more you become aware, the more it allows you in those moments to detect those feelings that will ultimately limit at times your decision making by anxiety. And so until next time, guys, keep going out there, keep killing it, keep writing new rules.